Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the LARP Noobs. I've been calling it our after school special. Those of us who grew up during the 90s will know what the hell I mean by that. Obviously I'm Bungle, I'm here with Millie.
Hello.
And what we're going to talk about tonight is something that has hit me in the past and recently is the Post LARP blues, grung, or whatever you want to call it, and also just mental health in general with LARP and stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that this episode might be potentially triggering for some people. We're not going to go into massive details or anything, but just in case you are of the more sensitive nature, we're just going to talk about our own experience with LARP drop with a little bit of bleed, I think, and then potentially give our own advice about how we deal with it and link to a few articles and things. We are in no means professionals, though.
Oh, hell no. Not at all. Not in the slightest. The only way we're professional is by experience, not through qualification.
No, exactly. So what works with us, what our opinions are, might differ completely to you or to anybody else in your life. So this is more a little sharing is caring. And if anybody has their own advice and things, feel free to comment and share it around. And we'll see what other people feel like.
So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I came up with this idea for the episode purely because after E1, I went into a massive funk. I just had a massive drop. I think it was probably the fact that I hadn't seen the majority of my LARP friends since, well, E4. Obviously caught a few of them at Reaper's Rest, but otherwise I hadn't seen a load of those people, and so there was a huge amount of serotonin and dopamine going into my brain, seeing all my friends, having a great time. And then I work in IT, I work from home, so I was all of a sudden back in my four-walled room with one window, and my human interaction was via Teams or with my partner. I literally sort of went into a massive grung, is what I like to be calling it at the moment, to avoid using the D word is grung. It just describes basically quite well. You say the word grung, you think, yeah.
I mean, I think it can be said for pretty much everyone is you experience such a massive drop in emotions when you get home from the LARP field, and especially at E1 this year because of the way it ended on the Sunday with us just waking up in a lake effectively.
Yeah.
And pack down was, I mean, for me and you and pretty much all of the Ashbourne, it was pretty miserable.
Yeah, it was a long, drawn-out affair of basically packing stuff down. I mean, I ended up putting my stuff into my bags, doing my tent up, and going back to my car and driving home and then coming back the next day to get my stuff.
Yeah.
I literally did not have the energy or the spoons to deal with packing my stuff down with the weather. And yeah, my mood sort of basically, the Sunday morning, my mood completely flipped 180.
Yeah. I think it's also, it's important that we talk about it as well, because I think a lot of people feel like they're on their own when they experience sort of negativity after LARP. I think we're quite lucky, as in you and I personally, because we have our LARP friends quickly becoming friends outside as well. So we started doing things together sort of out of character, perish the thought.
I know.
And things like that. So we've started building our own coping mechanisms and things like that. But I think it's important just to share it and tell people that they're not alone.
Yeah, definitely. I know, I don't know if I mentioned it on any previous episodes, I have suffered during events as well with massive mental health drops. Where basically I'll start stimming out and I have to just lock myself in my tent either for just a couple of hours, or in some cases I've gone to bed at like 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening and not come out till the Sunday morning because my brain just couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah, and it's quite intense in LARP as well. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Your brain goes through a lot. RP and role playing in general is the fact that your brain has to work twice as hard. You're not who you are anymore. So in terms of me, I am not Millie during LARP. If I'm at Empire, I'm Agni. If I'm at Northern Kingdoms, I'm Mal, flying like Phyllis, and all. You list down your characters. So your brain's having to compartmentalize. You're having to change who you are characteristically, and then you're having to change your mindset from the normal world into the make-believe world of the LARP, and then you're having to take in someone else's role play and your brain's having to then go, how would my character react rather than how would Millie react, which is like the hardest thing in the world. Your brain goes through a lot.
Yeah, it's sort of having that weird sort of almost like a buffer zone in your brain, but sometimes you're having to think so quickly on your feet with it.
Yeah.
It can sort of, your brain will just fry out, and like I say, I've had to run away and just disappear for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. Like Dave is no stranger to the mid-LARP nap every day. Like he doesn't.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't survive unless he's had his nap. Bless him.
Yeah, nap and food is what you need to give Dave.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you need to feed your brain and nourish it and look after it.
Who'd have thunk?
I know, right? But yeah, I sympathise like completely. I get really bad LARP drop, especially over high intensity LARPs, like with the iLARP systems and the smaller LARPs, because you're more ingrained in the story and the plot moves a lot quicker than it would at some fest LARPs. You do tend to get a lot more heavy reactions, which is quite interesting to look at. But I'm a weirdo who kind of finds all of this stuff fascinating.
I don't know if we want to delve into historically in regards to mental health stuff or not, or I mean, I know I've had a checkered past with it. I mean, it's quite well known most people. I'm been through one divorce in my lifetime so far. Touch wood, only the one. Which I did that. I was divorced at the age of about 16 years ago now.
Woof.
But obviously when I went through that, it was a massive sort of blow to my system. I mean, at that time, I was medicated for it.
Yeah.
But that's been the only time I've taken medication for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Main reason being is I know some other people get this as well, where basically, yeah, it clears your thoughts, but it cleared everything else out of me as well.
Yeah.
Where
yeah, literally,
it's like, yeah, it made all the bad things go away, but it made all the good things about me go away as well, and I was just basically a shell.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get on with those. I mean, they helped me at the time. There's a time and a place for them, and some people don't get that turn into like the shell feeling. Some people it does just help with the bad stuff. So yeah, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be medicated. I'm saying find what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think we're going to talk about in this episode, by just sort of talking through what we find, what we sort of feel are the causes of our LARP drops and our LARP blues, what we do to kind of alleviate those things, and then like talk about what other people have said and suggested. I think that would be quite a good little way. But I mean, it's so difficult. Most of my bleed and various different LARP drops revolves around inter-character relationships, not necessarily romantic, but just kind of dealing with people. And I mean, we can go into detail about it later, but I made a very firm decision last year that I was never going to do any IC character romance. And like, even though we are married IC, we don't actually have a romantic IC relationship, and I think that that's totally fine.
We're like a traditional married couple.
Yeah. So we'll talk about why I've chosen not to do that a bit later if you want. LARP is a weird place. It's a wonderful place. You just need to look after yourself and do regular check-ins with yourself, and potentially depending on what you're doing, the people around you as well. LARP check-ins at all times are big brain moves and very safe.
Yeah, especially if you're having some heavy RP with someone. Like, take a moment either like after it just to check in, because I mean, there's nothing worse than having a shouting match at someone at a LARP event, and it all going a bit like, oh god, oh god, oh god.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's just that 30 seconds at the end just going, just want to check in, you're okay. Obviously this is all IC feeling, there is no OC beef.
Yeah. Blah
blah blah. Just that touch in, just to make sure that, and like just explain that I know it's pretty harsh how things go sometimes, but that check-in can be the ideal thing for someone at the end of it all.
Yeah. And I mean, even talking about Nordic LARPs, like the ones that Dave's been on, where they touch on really quite hardcore emotional actions and various different things. Like there was one LARP system that I was reading into that had mechanics for physical assault and various different things. So it's those sort of situations are hardcore. So I mean, anyone who's listening that have gone on any of the Nordic LARPs, especially like Legion, is that the one where they go into Czechia and hike through the mountains? Yeah,
I think that's the one that he did in January.
Yeah,
January or February.
Yeah. So those ones where you're kind of pushing your body and your brain to their physical limit is fascinating for me to learn about, but not something that I would necessarily go on myself.
I don't particularly envy that sort of thing. I mean, maybe in a few years. We've already touched a bit into what we feel the cause of some of these feelings are.
I mean, the main one for me is the change. A LARP world whilst the lore and everything can be expansive, especially if you look at the Empire wiki, there are very defined boundaries. Physically, you are limited to the site. You cannot leave the site and continue LARPing. When you're in LARP world, you're in a very set area. You have a very set world. You have a very set amount of rules that you can follow, especially when it comes to life points, to magic, to bartering and everything. You have a very set level of things and regulations and rules, just so that everyone can understand it, right? So that change in pace from when you go to a world with very set boundaries, and then throw yourself back into the real world where, you know, there is comparatively less, like everything is so much more turbulent, especially, I mean, we're not going to talk about anything like politics or anything like that, but like everything in our world, in the real world, is very uncertain. And then compare that to the LARP world, where it's still relatively uncertain, but so you go to Anvil, you know that there's going to be 2 battles on the Saturday and the Sunday. You know that there's going to be Senate at this time, and those times are always relatively concrete. Yeah. So you're going from a world where your brain can kind of understand the mechanics to back to reality, effectively, where it's a lot less like that.
Yeah. I think it's probably also when you're especially in Empire or other sort of like LARPs like that, there's, to a certain extent, you can actually affect the world a lot more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Than you can in the real world. I mean, I'm just a small, short. I'm just a small cog in a very big machine. Whereas at Empire, I mean, I'm still a small cog in a big machine, but I know a lot of people that I can talk to and try and get things done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas in the real world, I don't know who my local MP is.
I mean, I don't know Vesna or the Empress. Sorry, I don't know which.
Both Emperor and Empress.
Oh, lovely. So I don't know who the Emperor. You know, I don't know them in field, but imagine being a normal person. I mean, I don't know what they do OC, and then coming into a world where you are effectively the queen bee in a hive, where your actions can directly affect the entire system around you, which I find it's really interesting. And it was something that I watched Gellert do when he was senator. It was the fact that, you know, when you're in Senate, you are talking about real things that are going to have a real knock-on effect to Anvil. Like, for example, getting the bridges built in the Brass Coast, but then they didn't get built, which then meant that Madruga got completely cut off and then destroyed and all of this stuff. And it's like, it's the consequences that our in-game actions have are much greater than the consequences of our perceived normal world actions, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that definitely contributes to my LARP drop at the end. It's like I've gone from being a sort of middling fish in a rather small pond to a bit of plankton in an ocean.
Aww.
Look at me doing my little analogies.
I mean, another big thing is diet at Empire.
Oh my god, yes.
And other LARPs. I mean, with iLARP, I love the meal ticket for iLARP stuff. Having that and just knowing that I'm going to have a cooked breakfast and a hot meal during the day. Having that, getting something like that into you is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, prior to our neighbours at Empire, and when we used to cook occasionally on the campfire, keeping your food in, but decent food.
Yeah.
At least like getting a decent mix of protein and veg and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Your body, it's a machine. It needs fuel. Like your brain needs nutrient.
Yeah. I mean, like slight trigger warning for any calorie counters or anything like that. But like you forget that on a regular day, your body needs about 2,000 to 2,500 calories, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're at Anvil, if you are able-bodied, I do 35 to 40,000 steps a day at Anvil, and that's minus the battle with the physical exertion and all of that stuff. So
yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that, like, with the increase in activity, you also need to increase your food intake and the quality of that food intake as well. Like, pot noodles for 3 days, whilst it'll keep you full and it'll keep you warm, it's not going to keep your brain.
Yeah, you need a good selection of nutrients in there.
Yeah, like even if it's just going to Moorish for a hot breakfast or bringing bacon in a frying pan, making sure that it's properly cooked over the fire and things like that is quite.
Oh yeah. I mean, 'cause that's one of the big things. Obviously, people go on about. You'll see it across the Facebooks. Is hydrate. Keep drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I will say to that is you can't survive on water alone.
Yeah.
One of the things you lose the most of while you sweat isn't just the fluids, it's salts.
Yeah, it's all of the electrolytes.
Yeah. Salts and electrolytes are vital for your body. Like my other half's a nurse, so I hear all about it in regards to when someone's low on like sodium or anything, any electrolyte.
Yeah.
It can absolutely do you in.
Yeah.
So it's, again, making sure you're having the right sort of mixture of things. I mean, I'm not saying take a packet of salt and dump it in your water. You will be sick.
Yeah, but you can bring like rehydration sachets for you.
Yeah.
That saved me at Empire at E1 and we can make a little link dump of all of the things that we do to sort of things like that. Other, obviously, multiple things are available, but like the little electrolyte sachet or one of those dissolvable tablets in water, put it in your water bottle in the morning, have it throughout the day or at the start of the day before time in, and then you know that you've started the day with a certain amount of water, with a certain amount of electrolytes, and you know that you're like set to go. And that helps me, and especially for people. I mean, I always say drink responsibly at Empire. I do not drink responsibly at Empire.
I certainly do not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so especially if you're putting alcohol into that, you also need to put I would say, just to get over the hangover, if you're hangover inclined, like anything that you can do to give your body that little bit of boost and to help your brain out with hydration, it will help you massively. It definitely helps me out during the day. And get an IC water bottle as well, or even just a little pouch to put an OC water bottle in. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't hydrate right now because that's an OC.
Yeah.
The people understand that you need to look after yourself. Like, physical health comes before IC stuff.
It's like, I've got a giant double-walled insulated water bottle. And when I say giant, I mean 1.5 litre.
Oh, yeah.
And that thing is a godsend to have that. I try, before I leave for LARP, is I buy ice, and I fill that bottle up with ice as well.
Yeah, that's
especially if it's going to be a hot event. And, that ice will stay in there for at least 24 hours.
Yeah.
So
I try and have a big water bottle for when I'm in the tent.
So, yeah, obviously, we already touched on bleed. In regards to that sort of thing. I mean, I think, Dave's done an episode with a guy who wrote a paper in regards to bleed, I believe, was that?
Yeah, Davide Orazzi.
Yeah.
That's what his name was.
So we will put a link to that episode as well, because that guy, I think he went quite in depth into stuff in regards to bleed and how it can affect people.
Yeah, I mean, he's the lead lecturer at one of the European universities, so he is, you know what he says is actually well-founded and smart.
Yeah, unlike our stuff, which is just, do this, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I've been LARPing for 2-3 years now, and you've been going for how long?
Started in 2018.
Yeah, so what we say from experience with our own bodies and stuff. And if somebody listens to it and goes, "Oh, that sounds a lot like something I could deal with," then that's great.
Obviously, your mileage may vary.
I mean, seeing as we talked about, we touched on it. We could talk about our IC, OC feelings with bleed if you wanted to. We could touch on why I don't do romance IC.
Yeah, go for it.
So I wanted to touch on this a little bit, sort of talking about, because a lot of people, since we took over the podcast, have always asked if we would ever do a podcast episode on our relationship IC, because OC, we're just friends.
Yeah.
You've got a partner, I've got a partner. And I did go through a stage when I was newly out of a relationship last year where I was like, I think it would be kind of fun for Agni to go dating. And this was just before we decided to get married IC. And I had a couple of sort of people that were sort of going, "Oh my God, you're such a beautiful changeling. You're so wonderful. We should go on a date sometime." And of course, because I was like, I want to try this. I want to see if it's something that I would be interested in exploring IC. I said yes. And I went on a couple of IC dates with people, and we obviously did loads of check-ins. We did so in between the summits, we did check-ins, we planned out our dates. Everybody knew that it was purely IC. There was not going to be any OC relations coming from this. However, in reality, because I was newly out of a relationship and I was dealing with a lot of that fallout from a breakup, I then experienced a lot of very intense relationship bleed from those 2 dates. And that's nothing against the people that I was going on the dates with. They were all very kind. We all did a lot of check-ins. But you cannot plan and predict how other people are going to react and how you yourself are going to react in situations. So even though we had planned so much, like there was an event where I was talking to this person in Varushka and we were having a really nice date, and one of their friends, IC and OC, came and sat with us because they just wanted to participate in the RP. But then it became a whole thing of us then having to integrate a third person into this and then explain what we were doing. And then obviously because the 2 people were friends, OC, they had a little bit of like a, wait, what? Because OC, that other person also had a partner and was married and things like that. So it just became too much. And I remember having a sit down chat with you at the end of that event being like, I am never doing this again. Yeah. And that is how we got married. Yep.
You settled for old keys.
No, I did not settle. How dare you? The proxy of the senator to her Kinia is, I am punching, my friend. The lowly scribe and the thing. But yeah, so, I mean, if anybody's ever wondered, that's the story of how we got together. Yeah. But it all came from basically a massive amount of bleed. And I think that what we did was the right decision for me. And I really appreciated you like being like, should we just get married? Yeah. And it was really nice. And since then, nobody's come anywhere near me because I've got a lovely husband who's got quite a heavy bandolier full of weapons. Yeah. You are literally like my guard dog energy, which I love.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the energy I bring.
Yeah, but obviously, like, bleed comes in all sorts of sizes. It comes from any kind of interaction on the field. It doesn't have to be about love or dates or attraction or anything like that. It's massive. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who do. I believe the term is ball gowning. At stuff like Empire and things like that.
What's that?
It's basically going out and having icy relationships, I believe.
Oh.
It's a term I hear banded around a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it. A lot of people do enjoy it. Like you say, there's that huge risk of when you're getting into stuff like icy relationships, there is that risk of bleed there.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't affect everyone. It just affected me massively. And
I think it was timing for you.
Yeah. So. And I don't think I would ever... I mean, you have to know your own boundaries, don't you? And I think... Yeah. Given my attachment style in relationships and how I deal with relationships, I don't think that icy relationships are ever anything that I could actually deal with maturely and keep it purely icy. I don't think my brain is personally capable of that, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah. I think the fact that we were friends prior to the whole thing, obviously I checked in with my other half, letting her know this is the situation, this is what we're doing. Because that's the other thing you got to remember with... I mean, this isn't a chat about isolation. It's just about mental health and stuff, but it is all linked with bleed and stuff. Like, my other half is not a LARPer. Mm-hmm. So I touched base with her to let her know what was going on and things like that to see if she has any issue with it as well. Because obviously, it's not just about my mental health, it's about hers as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll sort of explain the situation, basically like you had said there. And she was all happy for it. So that's the main thing, is basically checking in with everyone involved.
So what do you do yourself personally when you get your LARP drop and all the things like that? Like, what do you do to sort of deal with the feelings that you get?
I mean, this time around, it really hit me very hard. And like I say, I was probably in a blue grunk for about a week or so. At least 2 to 3 weeks. I think I was at my lowest I'd been in a very long time. And yeah, it's so what I ended up sort of doing was trying to just put my mind onto other things, like playing silly little PC games and stuff like that. I've got such a huge Steam library that I'd never touched.
Yeah.
And just playing like the silly pointless games, like the ones like a point and click adventure or something like that, or not something like I love stuff like Helldivers and like first and third person shooters, but at that time it was not right for my brain. I was playing a silly little game like Unrailed, where I'm just like having to lay the track for this train so I can get to the other side of the valley and stuff like that.
Side scrollers are also my little guilty pleasure. Really good.
Just that, or little platform games and stuff like that. I've also started my venture back into fitness to get back on the field, and that is one thing I found like gave me a massive dopamine hit, was working out. I spent 30 minutes on a spin bike and remembered, oh yeah, I actually really enjoy doing this. The next day my legs weren't so happy, but it's one of those things like it really gave me that release inside my head again. It's like, oh yeah, of course. And then remember, there's that thing called the runner's high, you idiot. It's like, and that really helped me out this time around. And like in the past when I've had the grung, it's been a case of sort of finding things to focus my brain on that isn't about like, oh, it's all doom and gloom, as my brain tends to go a lot of the time. It's and also, like I say, I work from home, so I was trying to make an effort to go out and see people. I've got friends who live locally, friends who work in Cambridge and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do the day, work in Cambridge, work at the office, actually see people face to face rather than lock myself in my little tiny dark dungeon. That's basically one of the things I have been doing. And this time around, like, timing fell quite well with the time of my local beer festival came up, so I met with a load of people there. Including the wonderful Simon, and a load of the Waystone Path turned up as well, which was
how was it?
Oh, it was really good to see them all.
Oh, that's nice.
So it was a weird mixing as well though, because I was there with a load of my non-LARP friends, and then all of a sudden like Simon turns up, sits next to me, then a couple more members of the Waystone Path come along, and it was like I'm in the middle between two of my worlds right now.
I know,
it's quite strange,
weird, isn't it? I think you've also got to cut yourself a little bit of slack, don't you? Like you need to, the way that I do it, because obviously my work is very hardcore in this fact that like I will often on the Friday before a LARP I will have to do a full day of work, and then come to the LARP site. It's often after time in, so sort of 9-10 o'clock at night, sometimes midnight, and then from the Sunday I will have to go straight back to home and then quickly sort out all of my LARP kit, tidy it away, do laundry, and then I am right back at work the next day. Like you need to acknowledge the fact that you are putting your body and your brain through quite a lot of stress.
I learned early on LARP that I need to take the Monday after a weekend off. Because this was back in the day when I used to take the field and stuff as well. So I was running around, I was shouting. And I tried to work on a Monday and had no voice.
Oof.
And my legs were like, good luck. You work on the first floor. You're taking the lift, sunshine.
Yeah, I mean, you've just got to give yourself a little bit of slack, especially in those first 2 days. Like you've gone, like we talked earlier, the physical exertion of being at LARP, especially if you have any chronic illnesses or any difficulty moving about, you're going to be more tired than you usually are after a weekend. So therefore, it's going to have a knock-on effect with your brain, potentially with any job performance and things like that. Like a thing that helped me massively. And this is not just with the LARP blues, but just with life and my cronks in general, is just acknowledge the cause of your emotions. So sort of go, I'm feeling like this. The likelihood is it's because I haven't drunk or eaten properly in 3 days. I haven't slept properly in 3 days. And now I'm trying to throw myself right back into a regular routine. So I think acknowledging it is quite good.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I sympathise with the exercise. Like I tend to go to the gym or do like a light little walk or run the day after if I can, just to sort of, you just keep your muscles ticking over and things like that. And it really helps. It keeps you, like you said, your dopamine and your endorphins, it keeps them up. You
get that nice little spike, and it keeps it. It's not like a boom done. It's boom and a slow sort of grind down. I mean, Trying to go about 3 times a week at the moment, which
nice.
is a bit insane, but
no, that's good. Like, right, all right, Bung, you and I, here this second, stop putting yourself down, mate. 3 times a week is very good. It's not bad. Yeah. You're doing good. And also, if anybody fancies and following him TikTok, your TikToks are really good.
They're mostly just pictures.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like, I really enjoy it when I go, oh, Bung's been in the gym again.
Yeah.
It's really good. Give yourself some credit, man.
It gets to be my pre and post workout face on a lot of them, which is quite hilarious. The difference. Yeah. I look like I age about 10 years.
And really good music recommendations as well.
Oh yeah.
Give yourself some slack, my friend. But yeah, I mean, like we say, the way that we deal with our LARP drop is purely personal. If anybody finds any sort of thinks and goes, oh, that might be quite useful. The one thing I would say that helps me massively is having a proper meal on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Which for people who have 6+, 3, 4, 5 hour plus drives, I can understand why that's not necessarily feasible. And I know that a lot of people go to the Mackies on the motorway and eat that. But like it's like how we were saying, you need to nourish, like give your body the nutrients that it needs, even if you just take a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Like you just need to make sure that your body has those nutrients that it needs to help your brain out along the way. And that will...
My go-to when I come back on a Sunday is usually we'll order in a kebab.
Nice.
So I'll have a mixed kebab, so chicken and doner and salad.
Oh, yeah.
And garlic sauce. So I get my salt, get my vegetables, and I get my meat.
And also, I mean, to be fair, if you're building up the carbohydrate load, right? So it's that slow release energy for later on in the week. So like if you do get a Mackey's or a takeaway, that's fine. Get a good hot meal and a good amount of food in you. But like personally for me, I find that like a good healthy meal is quite good for me, because then I'm sort of ready and raring to go for my 2 a.m. alarm going off on the Monday morning.
Yeah, if you got work at 2 a.m. in the next Monday morning and you haven't got too far to go in the evening, then yeah,
it's quite helpful. But we've got there's a couple of really interesting articles that I read in prep for this episode. There's one on Nerdist. It was 2018, so it's some of the news and information in it might be slightly outdated now, but by somebody called Courtney Craft, and it's about coping with emotional bleed during roleplay. But towards the end of it has a lot of really good advice for how to deal with your bleed and things like that. Again, it's just sort of like be conscious of any strong emotions that you're feeling. Check in with your other players. So even if that's in game or after timeout on the Sunday, like just make sure to drop them a message on Facebook. Be like, hey, I'm feeling this way. Are you okay? If, like we said earlier with the bleed, when it comes to relationships, like for me, exploring your out of game feelings. Do yourself a little bit of therapy if you feel up to it, and just go, why has this made me feel like this? And it can actually be really, whoever said LARP was a cheaper alternative to therapy, man, like woof. And then like we said, listen to the experts. So there's our own podcast episode that Dave did a couple of years ago. There's also another really good set of episodes from an old podcast that hasn't posted in a couple of years, so I think they're done. But again, they're called Life Action Roleplay, and they're episodes from October and November 2020, I think it was. They did a series on our brains and dealing with bleed in-game and out of game, and again they're basically doing what we're doing now, where they talk through their own personal feelings and how they dealt with it. And even talking to somebody who has no idea what Empire is, or any kind of LARP is, like talk to somebody who has no relation to the game whatsoever, because you can talk to them about your emotions, your feelings, and they can give you a totally unbiased and purely objective input on your own feelings, which I find so refreshing. Like I will go home and I'll talk to my housemates and I'll be like, I killed a troll and then we did this and this, and my housemates will look at me gobsmacked for a little bit and they'll go, but how do you feel about that? Like, isn't it weird killing things and then going back to normal life? And you go, oh my god, it is. And that's really helpful as well.
Oh, we did ask some of our listeners up on Facebook for their input on this and how they deal.
Yeah.
One of our responses is from our a wonderful rival podcast. I love the guys from Laughs and Tarps, so they're absolutely great guys. Tom, I think what hits me is being away once again from what is by far the biggest collection of people I relate to and enjoy the company of, in the most condensed area, who you can be truly around yourself, be yourself around. And also the ability to play fantastical characters and achieve amazing things on the field with friends, and then going back to the average 9 to 5 is the struggle. His coping mechanism is start a podcast with your friends to reminisce about the amazing times you've had to act as a verbal diary you can tune into at any time, look back on those fantastic experiences. So there you're trying to push for even more saturation in the LARP podcast market.
I mean, to be fair, since starting, since taking over from Ian and Dave, I actually have experienced LARP drop a lot less. Because I guess because we talk about it, like we have that chance to relive it. So I mean, whether or not it's helping us deal with it or just prolonging the LARP drop.
I think, like I say, I think E1 was a special case for me. I mean, I've had this post LARP drop, and usually it lasts a few days. Yeah. Just for some reason, after E1, I had it for about 2-3 weeks.
Oh mate.
I think I got myself into a bad headspace. And wasn't listening to my body.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, Tom's touched on the things that we've spoken about, is the fact that it's the going from the fantastic to the monotonous of everyday life, and then so I think it's really interesting actually talking to other people and having their reasons and emotions matching up with ours. It's really reassuring actually. So if you do want to start a podcast, feel free to to message us or anyone at Lots and Tots. I'm sure they'll help you. Give a hand. It's quite good.
They're definitely
fun.
the more professional outfit as well. So.
Oh yeah. Well, how dare you? We're very
They've
professional.
got 5 microphones.
They do, but there are only 2 of us. If we had 5, it would be overkill.
Well, yeah, but when you do recordings with Dave and Ian,
that's true. But although while I was waiting for us to do a little thing, I did do a little ASMR thing.
Oh dear.
I am not proud of it. Maybe I need 2 microphones. Do the binaural thing. Probably not.
No.
Feel free to start a podcast and just talk to your friends about it. Remember to check in with your IC friends and just talk about all of the nonsense that you got up to at the weekend. Hots and knots, I think, as well. Like, if you don't want a podcast, post on your Empires Nations group, if you want to, about your hots and your knots, which is where you list your, favourite things from the weekend and maybe things that weren't as good. And that can be really cathartic because, like, you post it, people read it and they react and they go, oh my God, I was the person that did this with you. Or I agree, this wasn't personally very great, or, things like that. Again, it's just finding that common ground with people. I think is quite good. And Paige also wrote in, our lovely Paige, and they said, LARP drop is so real. My tips are to have a really nice bath the next day, write a bunch of IC mail, make playlists or add to existing ones about your character or group, and do something creative like write a short narrative piece or something to gently ease out of the weekend rather than just cut hard back to reality. Being kind to yourself is the most important thing, and remembering not to feel silly about being sad. And I could not agree more.
Yeah.
IC mail is a really good way of keeping your brain in that LARP headspace, but also putting it, it's a way of keeping the hype train rolling, but also a way of processing and dealing with your own emotions, which I find really helpful. Yeah.
I mean, the IC letters, I've written 2 IC letters between E1 and E2.
Nice.
One of which was to Paige's character.
Oh.
To inform her about Demarion.
Oh no!
So not the best IC letter to be writing. I think.
Oh no!
And having that happen to be the first thing at E1 as well probably didn't help the overall feelings of the weekend.
It was a very heavy weekend.
It was a very heavy weekend. So I'm hoping for a quieter E2.
Yeah, who knows?
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, I personally have listened to Paige is a phenomenal playlist maker. They made a playlist back in the day when so my former group, the Starseekers, one of our founding members, Morgan, died, and Paige created an amazing playlist about Morgan and the Starseekers, and it was just really beautiful. It will put you back in a slightly more emotionally sensitive headspace, but having that chance to do it and deal with it slowly and at your own pace is really good, and music really helps you deal with that.
Yeah, I know. I've played a few D&D games and stuff with Paige.
Yeah.
In the past, and I can't remember if it was her or one of the other people we were playing with, who basically got us in the habit of, when we're creating characters for these sessions, is make a playlist what that character listens to.
Oh, it's so clever.
Yeah, so I've got a collection of random playlists in my Spotify which belong to characters that I've created, and also the other people we were playing with's characters. So you get an idea of what their mindset is from what they listen to.
I think that's what I'm going to do for E2. I'm going to make an Agni playlist. I don't know what would be in it.
Mongolian throat swinging and screaming.
I mean, to be fair, if I'm joining the militia, it'd probably just be the Starsky and Hutch and like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Cops.
Yeah, all of the various different crime TV show theme tunes.
Right, so we have Joel also wrote in. LARP for me is a way of coping with my mental health. It is a great form of escapism where a few times a year I get to be someone who doesn't have real-world problems to worry about, and it gives me several real-world projects to work on and keep myself busy with, like costumes, props and things.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, I've also done that in the past as well, where basically LARP is my escapism from my real world. It's like, I have a monotonous job. Like I said earlier, I work in IT, I work from home, and yeah, going to LARP is like, boom, I'm out in the world. I think the problem was coming back to this afterwards can sometimes be a little bit jarring.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with like what Joel's saying. It is true. Like LARP is an absolute escapism. I myself am autistic and I've got ADHD, so a point where I've got all of the brain worms going on. Going to LARP and not having to be Millie for a little bit is really nice. Because it's almost like the ADHD kind of turns down in my head, and it's just really fun.
And we've got Daniel, another long-term listener of the podcast.
Yeah,
has also written in.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So I've not had LARP drop much nowadays, but I did get hit hard in the past. He did some evaluating and figured out how to adjust things for them to be less likely, and so here's what they're willing to share.
Nice.
Triggers included emotional bleed from excessively traumatic or stressful events for the character. Feeling left out when I saw engagement posts about stuff and not feeling the same response to my own. Getting anxious and overthinking what I did at the event and all the stuff that I could have done different. I mean, trigger-wise, that is, a lot of what I think we've both already mentioned as well there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've definitely experienced stuff like that in the past. Like, for some LARP systems where there's smaller game and there's more tailor-made stuff, especially in Northern Kingdoms and things like that, they have tailor-made quests. And sometimes it's necessary for only certain character classes to go on those quests. And it can be quite hard when you go, oh my God, I want to do this. And they go, sorry, mate, you're not a X, Y, or Z. It can be quite tough. And so, yeah, you just got to keep yourself in the headspace and not take it personally.
So we've got more from Daniel's here, which is, so their experiences, they seem to suffer more at LARPs where they had IC obligations, responsibilities, such as leading a group or having a hat. Obviously having a hat in Empire stuff like any sort of imperial title. Also realised it was also LARPs where they were constantly in emotional turmoil, I see, and that hit the hardest. So I felt I was missing out on other stuff folk did, or was focusing on the lows.
Yeah.
Again, like we've said there, which is like, when you do have those IC responsibilities, I mean, obviously I was just a proxy, but we had some evenings where my brain was just absolutely done for by the end of the evening after like a couple of sessions with Senate, having to do this, walking through there, trudging through, not heavy rain, but that wonderful misty rain that soaks you through in a matter of seconds without even feeling like it's raining.
Yeah.
That was one of the nights where literally I just had to disappear. But by the time I got back to my tent, lit a small fire just to warm up a little bit before going to bed. And then Goldie turned up.
Nice.
And had a great night after that bit, because it was just like all my responsibilities are gone and I'm just sitting here and I'm just having a great time drinking some drinks of Goldie. And Oily turns up as well and ended up having so many people from the Dread Shields and the various other groups that were obviously all friends with those lot at our campsite, which I used to hate back in the day. Just random people turning up to campsite. But these are our neighbours. We've known them well. Like the Dread Shields are our neighbours on camping on the IC camp.
Yeah.
And so we know a lot of their lot anyway. So I didn't feel like, and also there was no one trying to sleep in any of the tents near me at the time, so I didn't feel like I was keeping anyone up.
I think
ended up having a great evening in the end after that bit happening.
It's quite nice. I think something that Dave definitely dealt with a lot was, as senator, the IC and OC sort of world similarities is kind of like an MP, so like a member of parliament responsible for your area. And we had a couple of instances where he would get IC mail, so this was outside of the Empire system, where he would get letters from his constituents, so members of his sort of nation area, that were slightly edging on the harsher side of his performance. And if you read it IC, it's totally fine. It's a constituent who is holding their senator responsible for their position and their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But if you are out of that headspace where you go, oh my God, I got an IC letter, and then you're reading it and it's someone who's going, you're not doing a good enough job. You have to be responsible for this. You need to be doing this. Your brain can react in a very negative way. And it was something that we spoke to that person about, and they were like, oh no, I didn't mean it like this. Like, OC, I love you guys. Like, you guys are fine. IC, my character is very hard on the points. And so then in future messages, whenever there was an IC mail thing, they then put the little check-ins and said, by the way, this is going to have this.
That's definitely one of the things to check in, especially if you're doing IC mail as well, because the thing is, when you're face-to-face with someone, you can tell from tone of voice or intent, and you can also just do the instant check-in there. If you're writing something down, written text has no tonal intent.
Yeah.
You can make a joke, you can be sarcastic in that in a text message, and someone reads that and thinks that's deadly serious.
Yeah.
You have to basically, at that point, even if it's a case of saying, TW, I'm going into this on this, I do apologise, this is my character's views, not my views, not after the letter sent, but with the letter, have a little tag attached to it.
Yeah.
So that person's going into it not thinking, oh, la, 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 it's going to be great and fun, and then all of a sudden, bang, hit with a cricket bat.
Yeah, it can be really important. And I think that that's something that we've all experienced. And it's not to say that, don't get a hat at Empire and don't get an Imperial title at Empire because it increases your bleed. It's really good fun game. Like, we had a lot of fun being part of our diplomatic team. It's just something that you're going to have to be more, that I would personally advise being more wary about.
Yeah, be more conscious about the fact that you may get more bleed because of, well, you're getting more game, you're going to get more interactions with more people. And especially in the Senate game or things like that, you're going to be dealing with people who have opposing viewpoints to what your character does.
Yeah.
And in that case, you're going to have confrontation.
Yeah, and very strong opposing viewpoints as well.
Yeah.
Especially with, it's if you want to go into more detail about it, with the financial situation in Senate at the moment, where people are fighting over a very small budget, it's going to make everything way more intense. Especially like when, if you want a build slot or an appraisal and Senate can only do one of those per summit, it's really intense in Senate. And you just have to, when you have a hat, you just have to be a bit more wary about it. And talking to people who have those positions or have held them previously can be a really big help as well. And again,
having Simon and Martin to talk to in regards to everything to go with, especially being a Navari senator, it's just, it was a absolute godsend towards, well, Dave, myself, and you.
Yeah.
I think knowing how the whole process works, what we need to do here, what we need to do in regards to get this sort of thing sorted out.
Yeah.
Right, I'll continue with Daniel's. So he goes on to explain what his coping mechanisms are. So he's spoken to the player support rep at some of the LARPs, and they managed to take some of the stress off the IC role, so it stopped being so stressful. I'm not sure what system that is. I know Daniel plays a lot of systems.
Yeah.
So I know, Profound Decisions, they do have a player support rep, I think. But whether they're able to take any stress out of some of the roles there, I'm not sure how heavy set they are with their game. But
the support system at every system is very different. But we certainly, even if you go to your egregores or, the people who are, designated responsible, again, in quotation marks, adults who can, link in God and the wider PD team to any issues that you are having. But also the egregores are the fount of knowledge over your nation and how things are done. So if you want to deal with it more icy, you can talk to those people. You can talk to, if you're in Senate, is it the voice of Senate? The person that does all the speaking in the meetings.
Yeah, I think the speaker. I can't remember the title.
So speak to them, icy, or go to the hub and talk to the civil service.
Civil service.
Yeah, they will always be there on hand to help. They are all run by very passionate volunteers and people who dedicate their whole time at Empire to helping people. So do not feel like you have to endure IC to then deal with it OC. You can deal with it when you are in character, and it's really helpful.
Another thing is also tried to get our focusing on the sense that he had done it wrong and focus more on the good memories, usually chatting to folk I had fun with after, focusing more on the fun I had and not the if he had impact. Also moved away from playing always serious, responsible characters, moving away from the dreaded it's how my character would act to my character's integrity comes second to my mental well-being.
My God, so
I lightened up and played more fun characters. I've been playing Keys since I started Empire, and he's quite serious. I mean, he likes a bit of a joke with his friends and whatnot, and may or may not be a drunkle. Shh, hush, hush. So I do, and I like to have a bit of fun with my characters. I mean, the smaller LARPs I've done, I've probably had where I've had my very silly fun characters, like at Nightmare.
Father Killian.
Father Killian O'Rourke here. Hello.
Yeah. I mean, like Agni for me is basically Millie. Like I made Agni in 2 days. The most research I did was into her name and the meaning behind her name. If you go to any other smaller system with me, if you've been with me at Flying Lead, you will know that my 86-year-old doddery old lady Phyllis is ridiculous. And so much fun. And then
everyone loves Phyllis.
Oh yeah, you cannot not love Phyllis. But Phyllis knows that everyone loves her and takes the absolute ever-living mick out of it. If you go to Northern Kingdoms, my character Mal is a Kedwenny medic, very angry, very aggressive, very childish, refuses to acknowledge that magic exists. So I tend to have a much more fun when you have a more light-hearted character. That's not to say you can't have a serious character. And if you want to, absolutely do that. But just, again, acknowledge that your actions and you choosing to be more serious or more potentially aggressive needs more check-ins with yourself, with the people around you and things like that. Like, it's a knock-on effect, isn't it?
Yeah. And lastly, from Daniel, it's made the decision that if a character or game stopped being fun, they wouldn't keep playing just because they had to. He's retired characters who he loved because it was becoming too stressful to play them and changed how I played others, and that's had a massive boost. Which is another great thing. Is it's a character. Admittedly, you can be attached to this character quite a lot. I mean, I'm very attached to Keys. Like I said, I've been playing him since I started going to Empire. But I have changed my game throughout the entire time. I mean, I've gone from just being a little fighty fawn to an ambition guide who's now also taking up medical skills.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my plan at E3, back on the field as a medic.
Oh my goodness, you're coming for my job.
And not coming for your job. Someone's got to keep you alive while you're trying to keep Gellert alive.
That's true. But yeah, I do agree. I love all of my characters implicitly, and dealing with character death is a whole other kettle of fish that we haven't really talked about because none of us have really experienced it. But you have to, again, acknowledge that just because you've created the character doesn't mean that you are tied to them until they actually die on the field. You can retire them. And if it's no longer being fun, I agree with Daniel, just stop.
Yeah. I think because that's basically what Angus did.
Yeah.
Was he'd reached the end of Demarian's arc. Yeah. So that's why he decided to do it, as in it happened between E4 and just before E1 basically is when that all happened.
Yeah.
And
it tends to be the thing. It's like over the long dark or just before E4, People there tends to be a lot higher character fatalities or retirements because people reflect over the long dark and they go, do I really want to go back as this character?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I do. I think they've done everything they can. They've reached the heights that they've reached. I think it's time for them to walk off into the sunset.
I think it's the same like with Brenos, his character, because it was the event after the Talus event, shall we say?
Yeah.
That his character came in terminal.
Yeah.
But I think it's like whether he'd reached the end of that arc on that character. I mean, Brenos was a very angry, shouty person, but the guy behind it, Owen, nicest guy you could ever meet.
Oh, yeah.
And was always one to do check-ins for everything.
Yeah.
Like, because he knew how his character is. And the same goes for like, a lot of the other generals we've had in the past who've been very shouty, very angry. The actual character behind them are the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like Clay the Angry Changeling. Mm-hmm. Chris is such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And again, it's always about, they will always do their check-ins afterwards after any sort of proper angry sort of moment. And then again, that's the main thing, just to try and keep on top of what's going on. Be aware of your own feelings and how your actions could be perceived and what that could do towards someone else's feelings.
Yeah.
Like say, if you are having a heated debate with someone, do that check-in afterwards.
Yeah. Or even midway through. Like, people are not going to mind, like, just suddenly going, hey, can I shout at you really loudly in a second? Like, I'll make sure that I'm respectful. And then they go, yeah, sure. And then you go, why, Ayana? And it makes your gameplay better because you are safe in that space.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had very heavy IC debates before with people. One of which was with the late John Fresher, which was a great moment, having a long debate about how sometimes it is okay to run Rivers Run Red on our own regions.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
no.
it was a good, and I'll tell you what, I brought him around to my point. I mean, that's the posters we've had in.
Yeah.
If any do more to come in, I'll perhaps just highlight them into the chat or the text on the bottom of this episode.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to comment on whatever podcast system you're using, or comment on our Facebook group. If you have things to share that you don't necessarily want to be public, feel free to message us at LARP Noobs, or email us at the larpnewspodcast@gmail.com. Again, as we said, we are not professionals, but not
in the slightest.
Yeah, and similarly, whilst we love and appreciate everybody's opinions and things like that, we are also not therapists. So please do not come to us with incredibly intense emotional things, because we are not qualified or in a place to give that much emotional support, because as you've heard, we have quite a lot of emotions ourselves. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But like I say, if you do have anything you feel that could help someone else, like say you've been in a real bad situation after LARP or during LARP, and what you've done to assist getting yourself out of that, if it's something that we haven't touched on, just feel free to let us know, and we'll, like I say, either chuck it in the comments, or if you're, again, not confident, then email the message to the email address that Millie gave.
I think the one last thing that I wanted to say is that we've spoken for over an hour now, and it's predominantly been about support when you have negative feelings, but there's also a really positive side of LARP things, and it's post LARP charisma, and it's the opposite of the post LARP blues, and it's where you take all of the positive things of your character. So say, for example, you are in our example, a senator for your region in Navarre. That means that you have to speak publicly, you have to be confident. Well, you don't have to, but it helps to be confident, and it helps to be really good at dealing with people and very intense social situations. And then you take those feelings, thanks to Bleed, and those capabilities with you into the real world. And that's definitely something that I've benefited from. Like, having LARP in my life has made me so much more capable when it comes to dealing with a lot of very intense situations. I'm really good at dealing with stressful situations now, because nothing is quite as stressful as when you've got an entire band of Grendel charging right towards you, or if you're stuck in a donut of death.
I can't say I've ever been stuck in one of those. I tend to be on the outside.
Oh yeah, I know. Neither have I. But the new player skirmish, where they actively put you in a donut of death so that you can experience the stress of battle. You know, it's things like that you don't realize are actually helping you in the real world. Like you will, when you LARP, you will gain skills that you can take and apply to your real world life. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about LARP.
I think one of the things I've noticed with I have grabbed some quite positive stuff from going to LARP is becoming more outgoing, more positive, and more charismatic probably, or confident in myself. Because I was speaking to Simon last week and sort of saying, well, Keys there's a fair bit of difference between us. I haven't seen it, so it's like, okay, perhaps me and my character are actually much more similar, or at least I've become more like the person that Keys is, because he's happy to go talk to people, whereas normally I'd be the sort of guy who'd be like, I'm just going to go sit over there in the corner and listen to my music. Bye.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think as well, like taking that positive attitude of the LARPs and TARPs talked about it in their pre-LARP, the E1, was not being the quiet, mysterious character in the corner.
Yeah.
You learn from LARP by being the person that just goes up to people and starts talking to them, and learning about how they play the game and learning from those people and building those relationships. And it can be really good because, again, like I said right at the start, LARP is a contained space that can be very safe and really healthy, and helps you deal with things. And having that chance to experiment with yourself, with your characters, and throw yourself into situations that you yourself so for example, Agni can throw herself into so many more social situations than Millie feels that she can. And then as a knock-on effect of that, I, as Millie, have now become more confident, and I can go up to people and go, hey, I'm Millie, I do this. And it's really helpful. Yeah. So not all post-LARP emotions are negative, is what I'm trying to say. Not
everything you take out of LARP is a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
As the main target of this thing was, let's say, I came up with this idea to do it purely while I was in the middle of the grung.
Yeah.
So,
and I just
messaged you going, how do you fancy about doing something like this?
Yeah, and I think it's really important because, like, the amount of response that we had to the post about it, and the people contacting us and telling us how they feel, it's incredible. And I think that a lot of people hopefully are going to benefit from this episode. So I hope that whoever's listening to this, that you've found a little bit of advice or a little bit of camaraderie in the fact that you are not alone, your feelings are valid, and most people are feeling them.
Yeah. And we love you.
We do. Unless I'm not ready to commit to love yet. So I like you very much.
Wow, that was like our wedding vows.
Hey, that wedding was supposed to be way more complicated, and you know it.
Oh, I know. It just doesn't help our priest decided to get very drunk beforehand.
It was the definition of a shotgun wedding, and I love it.
Oh yeah. It was perfectly chaotic for Agni.
Yeah, exactly. It really fitted it. And I'm so glad that we have our little podcast to talk about stuff on. So thank you, Bung. Yeah. This was a really good idea.
And let's say hopefully this helps someone out there, and let us know if it does.
E2 is just around the corner.
Yeah, E2 is literally, we were recording this 3 weeks prior.
I know. I'm so excited.
E2.
We've got this podcast episode, one more. And then we are right back into E2, and it's pre-LARP, baby.
Oh dear, we've got to do a pre-LARP episode as well.
Oh yeah, we do. Come on now.
Start that off now. Oh, yeah. Thanks.
It's all right. I'm here for you.
Again, thank you to our Patreons.
Yeah.
Without you guys, literally, this would be virtually impossible. Mm-hmm. Podcast hosting is not free.
No.
And yeah, I work in IT. Millie works in film and TV
film
industry.
And television industry, yeah.
So it's not the best thing to try and pay for podcasting stuff on the side of everything else.
No,
and we're in Cosy Lives, mate. Cosy Lives, isn't it?
I know, and my poor little microphone is limping over the line, so we're gonna have to buy some new equipment soon. But thank you so much to all of our Patreons. You guys are incredible. People that have been subscribed to us since 2019. Daniel, I'm looking at you. all the way up to our newest supporter who's in February. So that's Josh, our wonderful things. And I think someone who we haven't thanked in a while, just because their number hasn't come up, is Violet. So thank you so much, Violet.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're one of our longest supporters, so we love and appreciate you greatly.
We love and appreciate you all, even those who don't support on Patreon. Just listening to our podcast, speaking to everyone about it, whatever. And feel free, if you see us like OC at any LARP event, just come up and say hello.
And if you can't afford Patreon for whatever reason, that's absolutely fine. There is no pressure. Feel free to leave us a review on Spotify or whatever podcast system that you're using. Give us a like on Facebook, drop us a message, leave us a comment. Any kind of engagement just really helps push us along. We are so close to 1,000 followers on Facebook.
Oh wow.
Which is weird. It's strange. So I don't know what I would do with 1,000 likes.
I'll need to rebrand my TikTok as the LARP Noobs TikTok as well.
I think. Do you know what? If we get to 1,000 followers, we will. I think we need to do a little artistic rebrand of the page. I think I'm giving myself until then.
Okay.
Because then I can learn Photoshop in that time.
Yeah, that's a challenge, guys. Get it up within the next 5 minutes.
Oh God,
no! To this episode. All right. Well, strength of the Empire.
Strength to Navarre.